what's going on, homies? It's your boy Stumped back for the OPTC video, and in today's video, we're diving into some PvP with the updated shooter team that now includes Verse Kid, or USS D-Mid as people are actually calling him. The loser of the Clash of Elbath brings a lot of damage to the shooter team, and he works very, very nicely. Shooters have been getting like buff after buff after buff. Makes me feel like the Dex team when they were just sort of getting unit after unit after unit. With the release of stuff like Treasure Map Frankie, Esper, we had obviously Rise of Shinobu earlier in the year. You could throw on units like the 6+ Akainu that just got his Super Evolution on the bench and do some really fun stuff with the shooter-based team. But Kid does find a home over here, and I feel like he's going to be a pretty strong unit moving forward for a little bit of time. He does have some strengths and he has some weaknesses, but the upside to the character is he brings a lot of damage. Look, he can bring so much damage to this team and definitely help it out quite a bit. Where he fits in the shooter team is still up for discussion, and that's what we're going to try and focus on in today's video. Where you should run Kid if you guys are running a shooter team, and how that will actually look. Now, shooters have some very, very good units, and obviously with Esper and Rise of Shinobu, it leaves a lot of room for bench options and running legends on the bench. As you can see, I'm running Strength Luffy as my bench option, which is absolutely wild in 2024 to see Strength Luffy just rocking on a bench on the bench of a shooter team. And when you sort of have like these really strong strength options and sort of strength benching units like Akainu and Kuma, you can do some really, really cool stuff. But Kid in Rumble brings a HP buff, an attack buff, and a speed buff. And if you have 5 or more shooters on the team, he gives himself level 6 attack and level 4 CD. So he's on a massive 35-second cooldown, which is like ridiculously high. But the fact that he gives himself level 4 obviously drops that down to around 30 seconds. This is just a passive that stays all the time. He's going to have that level 4 CD speed up, and then if you run it with stuff like Uta and whatnot, you can get his special to pop off within the first 30 seconds. Very, very easily. Uta gives 20% cooldowns as well, and it works quite nicely. So we're going to take on some challenge fights today, and starting off with the Dex team, we're going to run Kid in the front. Now, as you can see, if you get to the last 40 seconds, this is where Kid does majority of his damage. This is where Kid does shine the best, and this is why I think Kid is probably going to see a lot of play as a bench unit, because you really want him to come in and utilize his special in the last 40 seconds. If you run him in the front against some team that can sort of blow you away, like Slashers, or even some powerful quick teams, units that have the forced out mechanic or have just like insta-kill shots like S-Hawk and Whitebeard Roger, you will find that you won't really see this shot in the last 40 seconds that effectively. When you're versing tankier teams like the Dex team, you definitely can utilize this to your advantage. You can see out the fight. You have a lot of bulk. You have a lot of damage output, and you can do some really, really fun stuff there. However, if you go up against other teams that kind of have a bit more speed about them, they have like some more fixed damage, or they have units that can bypass defense. Units like I said, Shank, S-Hawk, Whitebeard Roger, the 10th anniversary Shanks hits very, very hard. Esper with his forced out mechanic, and other characters like Wano Law can definitely cause a nuisance for Kid as well, because he's a driven character. If you go up against these types of teams and have Kid in the front, even though he is providing a HP buff, I just find that if he dies and you lose out on this particular ability, it's completely null and void, right? You can't do damage if you're dead, and with that, if he does get killed very quickly in the front lines, then you are just never going to see that extra attacking buff. But he's special, talking about the damage he can do, targets enemies within a large range for horizontal attack of 3.5. If 5 or more shooter characters are on the team, he then hits for another horizontal of 3.5 damage, and when there's 40 seconds or left, he targets 3 enemies that ignores defense for 1.5 times his attack. So he can hit very, very hard. Very reminiscent of the original Strength Kid that would kind of do like this big horizontal attack that would bypass defense. This Kid doesn't do that, but what he does do is he does the damage to defense at the back end of the fight. Unfortunately, though, the horizontal range is probably the worst in terms of damage dealing for characters in PvP. The horizontal can absolutely whiff, and if the unit or the RNG of your character runs too far forward or targets a unit at the back, something like that, you do have like this ability to just not hit anyone, and then even though you're not bypassing defense anyway, you're not really doing that much damage at all, because you're just not hitting anything. The upside to Kid is in the last 40 seconds, he will target 3 units no matter what to do the damage through defense, which is great. Now, when you have Kid doing this, when you have Frankie, who's also bypassing defense, and then Kuma off the bench, you can also do that. You do have a lot of damage options, and you can do some fun stuff there. But like I said, it takes a very, very long time to get to the last 40 seconds. And on top of that, you need Kid to use his special in this last 40 seconds. So as you can see there, I actually got blown back with Kid, and it would have been absolutely perfect just to get that special off in the last 40 seconds. However, Esper just came in, killed everything, and then it was basically over. Lucky for us, we have Strength Luffy on the bench, and that's just a fantastic back-ended unit to bring, because he can do stuff like this. So, this particular fight, I wasn't going to include in the video, but I wanted to showcase that even if you can sort of rumble with the best of the teams, once you kind of get to this sort of back end of the 40 seconds, if Kid dies, you're not going to see that extra damage in the last 40 seconds anyway, and that can just be an absolute problem for the character. So lucky for us, we had Strength Gear 5 on the bench, the Strength Film Red Luffy on the bench, and he can salvage a fight very, very easily because he's on a high cooldown too. But he's basically, if he comes in for Kid, like he's just gonna take all that cooldown and eat it every day. And if you have good RNG with the back end of a bench, you can do stuff like that. But with Kid, I've been finding a lot more success on the bench for this particular character. Now, I'm going to dive straight back into the same fight. We're going to use a little bit of a different team. I did drop a Kainu, and we brought in the Usopp for the Stampede celebration. Now, unfortunately, this Usopp's not available anymore. Hopefully they bring him back in some capacity, whether it's a shop or whatnot. But the idea of this Usopp character is he applies level 5 CD reduction to your entire team. Very, very powerful ability. It's a 20 cost unit. He'll trigger Frankie. He does all this fun stuff there. But what we really need from this Usopp is we need him to die. So we want to put him in the middle slot. We want him to come in, and we literally just want him to eat the shots for us and die. When he does that, Esper gets a very nice buff, and Kid will come in and basically be ready to go. Obviously, he's not going to be at maximum HP because he does give a HP buff. If you have any healers, though, you obviously can work that out as well. But the upside to Kid coming in now is he's going to come in with a special, and he's going to come in and hit very, very hard. On top of losing Usopp, your Esper gets that extra cooldown reduction, he gets those extra buffs, but that level 5 CD reduction that Usopp can give works exceptionally for units like Frankie. Frankie needs to go in the first 40 seconds. Like, I cannot stress how important it is for Frankie to go in the first 40 seconds. And when you come up against characters like Wano Law that can nerf Powerhouse or driven characters, stuff like that, it can be very, very annoying. An upside to Kid coming in later in the game is he's actually not getting nerfed by these particular characters, and if you kill them before he comes in, or as he comes in, or anything like that, he's not actually going to take those nerfs, and then you can start building up your CD a little bit faster. Downside is obviously it's still very RNG based in what happens if Kid dies, and if you get to that last 40 seconds, but I just found having him coming in off the bench with Usopp in the front that's giving just the team way more cooldowns to pop their specials off a little bit quicker, it just worked a little bit nicer. Now, unfortunately, we got hit by the Shank shot there, and then I believe no, Saw wasn't ready. That was a win. We got hit by the Shank special that Kid did. Unfortunately, we're not going to see that damage in the last 40 seconds, and as I mentioned, that is like just the biggest problem when it comes to Kid. Needing to be in the last 40 seconds to do majority of the damage, that can be the biggest problem. And the first two shots that he has, whilst on a shooter team, he's always going to get them because you have 5 shooters. And obviously the first part literally doesn't have a restriction. That 3.5 times his attack, whilst it is a good solid number, it's not bypassing defense. Teams with massive defensive stacks will just eat this for breakfast. Unfortunately, you're just not going to see any value from that at all, which kind of sucks. Plus, you'll have that horizontal issue that I spoke about as well. And even if they do eat it, sometimes you just won't hit the characters that you actually need. Big upside to this team, though, is you can run Luffy on the bench and just have him come in, clean house with a bit of a strength lineup, and do some really, really fun stuff there. So, as you can see, like that team just worked way better with Kid on the bench rather than Kid in the front. And this is not only just to the fact that Kid is on the bench, but it's more the fact that Usopp is just providing so much to that front line with that level 5 CD. And when you go up against teams like Slashers that have like S-Hawk, Shanks, Roger Whitebeard at their disposal that can easily just pick off a character like Kid very, very easily, having Usopp in the front just gives your team a chance. I tried this Slasher fight with Kid in the front a couple times, and S-Hawk and then Whitebeard Roger would literally just blow away my entire lineup. It didn't even come close to popping off specials or getting anything remotely near where I need it to be. But once we put Usopp in the front, as you can see, Frankie is going within that first 30 seconds to the first 40 seconds if there is something like a Wano Law on the field. Frankie going this early is a must. Again, I cannot stress that enough for the shooter team. Having Frankie go in the first 40 seconds is a need, not only because he's a good damage dealing unit, but because he can also set defense low. He reduces defense by level 4 and it hits a bunch of different characters, and this helps Kid a lot. This ability to lower defense makes those 3.5 times attack actually do something. And as you can see, Usopp, he's not a strong unit. He will die pretty quickly. And that way you have Kid come in and he can sort of reap the benefits from that cooldown reduction that Usopp's been giving. 9 times out of 10, if you do take the spot of Usopp, he will actually come in with a special, which is awesome. Which means he comes in, even though it is obviously still early in the fight, he is going to do a lot of damage and he can pick off some of these big name units like that. So, like I said, I'm a bigger fan of Kid on the bench. If you guys have a bit of a different lineup for shooters, obviously you have stuff like Kizaru Fuji. You have other units like Tandem Ace. You have the Strength Ace that you could definitely run as well. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys are running and what your particular shooter teams actually look like. In saying that though, characters like S-Hawk are still very, very scary. And the shooter team doesn't have that much bulk, especially when you are utilizing that Usopp in the front. Because the HP value does get reduced quite drastically, you are going to get hit very, very hard by characters that can bypass defense, that have high attack stats. You have good defense on this team, but it's just mainly like those big boppers, like I said, like S-Hawk, Whitebeard Roger, the two big ones. Even other characters now, like Kaido, can hit you for 6. So you got to be very, very careful when you are doing this type of stuff. But like I said, I've just found that Kid off the bench rather than the front just provides your team, or the shooter team, I should say, a bit more viability when it does come up against these particular hard-hitting teams. Another upside, obviously, is having Luffy in the back as well. Because if you can just have Luffy with a strength kind of build lead towards his back end, you can do something like this. And unfortunately, it's so toxic, man. It's actually so toxic. Like, ridiculously toxic. All in all, Kid is just a fantastic PvP character. Shooters, they're not all there, like, in terms of top 5 chat. But they could definitely make a run for the top 10, and they've definitely added a lot to the repertoire and the arsenal of the shooter team. I'd like to do some stuff with strength shooters as well. Like, as you guys are seeing with like this Luffy on the bench, he's just so ridiculously powerful that you could do some really fun stuff with like you see Raizo Shinobu, you have Akainu, you have Kuma, you have like I said, that Strength Ace is another really, really good option. For the lineup, you could just throw Esper on the team just because he's buffing shooters and whatnot. Do some really, really fun stuff with those characters. Frankie obviously is a fantastic unit as well. But if you guys would like to see more stuff on something like a strength shooter base, let me know in the comment section below. But like I said, all in all, Kid is very, very good. He's going to be a very fun unit to use. And if shooters just keep getting a little bit more buffs, if they just keep getting a little bit more than what they have, maybe another super evolution that can put them over the line, maybe something that just does what Uda does with a little bit better, or getting a big CD reducer or another PvP. They don't need another PvP legend, but like if they get another like very good PvP character, the team could definitely go even higher than it already is. And like I said, shooters right now has been one of the most fun teams to run. I've really, really enjoyed utilizing them and mixing it up a little bit, running stuff like that Usopp and bringing stuff like the 6+ Akainu and seeing what you can do with the Strength Luffy on the bench, having Esper with his forced out mechanic and then the cooldowns that Uta can bring, the action bind that Raizo Shinobu does. And like I said, they've been a really, really fun team, and one that is definitely going to cause a lot of people havoc as a defensive option. So be very, very careful if you guys see this particular team out in the wilds, because if you have that Luffy come in, man, like I'm telling you right now, that Luffy he's damn scary. And then with all of the shenanigans that like Raizo Shinobu can do and Esper, like it's just a very, very fun team. But let me know what you guys think of shooters down below. We're going to take on, wrap it up with this quick fight. I thought I'd take on the quick fight because our team is very strength orientated, especially with obviously the bench, but I really wanted to get that Kid shot off one more time, and I figured this team was actually quite bulky, so we might be able to do that, but alas, we got the special to pop off in the 44 seconds, so another downside to Kid. If you're moving too fast, you're not going to see that special till very, very late, but having characters like Uta and the CD reduction that Kid gives himself does help out a lot as well. But that's going to wrap up the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, belt the like button, hit the subscribe button, do all that good stuff. Most importantly, wherever you guys are in this beautiful world, please remember to enjoy the rest of your day. As always, homies, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.